What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Fast. Today, let's get started with Bo Nickal says he'd stop Shara Magomedov in 90 seconds. Undefeated UFC middleweight Bo Nickal believes a fight with fellow rising star Shara Magomedov would be a lopsided proposition. Nickal will face dangerous grappler Paul Craig at UFC 309 in New York City later this month. He returns to the octagon after defeating Cody Brundage in his most recent fight at UFC 300. Despite Magomedov's knockout of the year contender, Nickal thinks he'd make quick work of Magomedov inside the octagon. I would like to fight him, but it's not a tough fight, and I'd have to go to Abu Dhabi. I'd do it, but I think it's not a tough fight. And also, the UFC probably doesn't want that right now. Go over to Saudi Arabia, make a quick check, 90 seconds, fly back. Nickal and Magomedov are two of the brightest young stars in the UFC middleweight division. Both made their promotional debuts last year after regional MMA success. Colby Covington has invited Paddy Pimblett up to 170 pounds. Former interim UFC welterweight champion Colby Covington is eyeing a return to action next year, and he has a couple of potential foes in mind. Covington hasn't appeared inside the octagon since his third failed attempt at capturing undisputed gold on mixed martial arts' biggest stage last December. Of course, he wants to come up to welterweight and fight me or Conor McGregor, the two biggest names in the UFC right now. He'd be honored and be lucky to get this fight, but I think we need to get it going. I don't like when people talk big to the media and don't back up their talk. We need to hold him accountable for his words. Pimblett has long expressed a firm dislike toward Covington, calling him out for the supposed persona he's employed for much of his UFC career. Kamaru Usman breaks silence on potential UFC 310 fight versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. One possibility being talked about is for Shavkat to meet former 170-pound champ Kamaru Usman for an interim belt at the December 7th pay-per-view event from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. While Shavkat has lobbied for that matchup to take place, things are still up in the air. On Thursday's episode of his Pound for Pound podcast with Henry Cejudo, Kamaru expressed a willingness to step in on short notice, but wasn't clear about being contacted by UFC matchmakers, as he commented on the situation for the first time. The UFC is going to call who they think is going to be legit tough enough and man enough to step in there, is crazy enough to step in there on short notice, and go out there and possibly shock the world. Definitely the UFC knows who to call when that situation happens. And if they do give me a call, I'm going to answer the call, get a couple things straight, and if we've got to do it, we've got to do it. I don't shy away from any of that. Dana White predicts what's in store for Tom Aspinall after Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. It seems Dana White wants to see a proper unification bout between interim UFC heavyweight champ Tom Aspinall and the winner of Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic at UFC 309. The UFC president is hopeful that the two heavyweight legends battling on November 16th would give the young champion a crack at immortality, as they were given in the past. In an interview with UFC on TNT Sports on X, White gave a candid opinion on what could transpire in the aftermath of UFC 309 at Madison Square Garden. I truly believe that whoever wins this fight competitively, the way these guys are wired, and the reason why they're both massive legends in the sport, they're not just going to ride off into the sunset without settling the dispute with Tom Aspinall. I think that also when you think about Jon Jones becoming the youngest world champion and all the things Stipe has accomplished, they were given opportunities, when they were young, and I think they would reciprocate. Daniel Cormier explains why he avoids interviewing Conor McGregor. Even if you've lived under a rock, you might have heard about the conflict between Conor and Khabib. The UFC lightweight superstars fought for the title in October 2018. To this day, the Eagle has never tried to mend his relationship with McGregor, and they're likely rivals for life. Nurmagomedov's close relationship with former UFC double champ Daniel Cormier is also no secret. The duo makes for a popular bromance in MMA circles, and over the years, their bond has strengthened considerably. I don't try to request McGregor for interviews. I don't think that I would get him, but I'm just saying it's not a request I make every time I'm there. But this part of the course for these dudes, because honestly, Khabib's not just a teammate, he's family. And they're like that with everyone, and they feel like if someone's in conflict, especially at the level that Jones and I were in conflict, they're very stern in the side they pick. And it's kind of refreshing because most people aren't like that, guys. They're just not, especially us as Americans. Khabib is the man. He's got to be one of the most genuine humans I've ever met. Daniel acknowledged that the undefeated UFC lightweight's philosophy is not very common in the United States, but he agrees with it now. Dricus du Plessis confident in his power in potential Alex Pereira fight. Middleweight champion du Plessis hopes to get a crack at light heavyweight champion Pereira down the line, and he likes his chances against him. Du Plessis insists strength would not be an issue, but acknowledges range likely would. Du Plessis overcame that range in his most recent outing against Israel Adesanya, where he was able to hurt him on the feet, then submit him to retain his title at UFC 305. Du Plessis paid Pereira plenty of respect and wouldn't even fault him if he decided to retire before he gets a chance to fight him. If I'm talking about just the stand-up exchanges, I'm not fighting a kickboxing fight. I'm fighting an MMA fight. And a kickboxing fight, you need to be able to land combos. You need to land massive punches the whole time. Get a guy rocked, you get an 8 count. You have all those variables. Where in MMA, I don't care who you are. If I catch you clean with those small gloves, you're going to go down, and I am going to catch you eventually. Now I said it with Izzy. He said I'm too slow. I wouldn't be able to catch him. Well, yeah, I'm punching and I'm kicking, but it's not a kickboxing fight. It's an MMA fight, and when I put those together, it's a different fight. I honestly believe that with a guy like Alex Pereira, he has power. I have a lot of power too. Yes, he has crisp striking. His striking is incredible. That's why he has the kickboxing resume he has. But we saw with the Khalil Roundtree fight, we saw a lot of things. Khalil had success in those first 2 rounds. Tom Aspinall showers praise on Khamzat Chimaev's dominant win over Robert Whittaker at UFC 308. Khamzat Chimaev stunned the combat sports world after submitting Robert Whittaker in round 1 at UFC 308. He handed the Australian the first submission loss of his octagon career, and according to Tom Aspinall, will become the next middleweight champion. Chimaev had long been assumed to achieve great things in MMA, but his inactivity over the past 3 years, coupled with his disastrous UFC 279 weight miss, created disillusion among fans about the Chechen's potential. However, he returned more than a year on from his clash with Kamaru Usman at UFC 294 to thoroughly dominate Whittaker en route to a brutal submission. The guy is incredible, absolutely incredible. It honestly inspires me to be better, because you go in there and dominate a former champion like that easy without taking any shots. Being completely one-sided. Inspiring, man. The guy is incredible. He's definitely gonna be a champion. I want to see him and Dricus Du Plessis next. That's nothing against Sean Strickland. Jon Jones gives a definitive answer on potential Tom Aspinall fight after UFC 309. UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones knows Tom Aspinall holds a piece of the division's title, but isn't interested in a unification bout. If Jones continues to fight, a title unification bout against current interim heavyweight champion Aspinall appears to be the public's popular wish. However, Jones doesn't share the same desire to make that fight happen. More than likely not. I feel like Tom Aspinall is, I don't want to say nobody, but he just hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything. I'm here to compete against the guys where when we look back, 10 years from now, you'll be like, Jon Jones fought this guy and that guy, this legend and that champion and this champion. If there were to be a fight of a guy that's still on our UFC roster that would be not only financially worth it, but legacy worth it, it would be Alex Pereira. I think that fight would go much farther on my legacy than a young man who's cool today and maybe gone tomorrow. I've just been here too long to get all excited about someone who is hot today. I'm here for legacy.